各位同事，我哋夠人。
Members, we have a quorum and it is the appointed time for the meeting. Let me call the meeting to order. Item 1 on the agenda. Information papers issued since the last meeting. They are in the agenda. There are 3 such papers. Item 2. Hong Kong Football Association 5-year strategic plan midterm review. Perhaps we can invite the administration to come in first.
非常踴躍啊！大家報名發言。
Members are all raising their hands to speak.
姚思榮有句哦，我呢度 OK。今日出席嘅咧，政府。
From the administration, we have Mr. Jack Chan, Acting Secretary for Home Affairs, Mr. Yang Tak Kang, Commissioner for Sports, Mr. Brian Leung, Chairman of the Hong Kong Football Association, and we also have Ms. Michelle Lee, Director of Leisure and Cultural Services, Mr. Paul Chang, PAS for Home Affairs, Mr. Lee Tak Nang, member of the Football Task Force, and also Dr. Lobo Louis, member of the Football Task Force, as well as Mr. Ken Wu, head of corporate governance at the Hong Kong Football Association. Acting Secretary for Home Affairs, can you walk us through the paper? Thank you, Chairman. The administration has been doing its best to develop the sport of soccer in Hong Kong. After Project Phoenix in May 2014, we have put aside at most $25 million annually for Hong Kong FA for a period of 5 years in order to support them in developing their 5-year strategy. And this will help them with the administration and technical side in order to boost their capability to promote soccer. As of February this year, we have already given them $62 million. And according to the agreement we signed with the Hong Kong FA, the Hong Kong FA has to provide a report to the task force every half year to let us know how the targets in the agreement have been achieved. And also the FTF will have to take a midterm review in order to review the effectiveness of the FA in launching the scheme. And that midterm review has just been finished. And in the process, we have collected views from coaches, footballers, fans, and also club representatives, even staff of Hong Kong FA, in order to conduct the review and also to ask them for their views about the strategy and also the way forward. And all in all, we have seen that the Hong Kong FA has achieved a lot of improvements in many areas in terms of promoting grassroots and youth football, girls and women's football, and also futsal. The Hong Kong FA has done a good job. And the number of participation has increased by over 40. For girls and women, the increase is even over 70%, and it has achieved the performance before time. And also with regard to the technical side, including coach and referee development, the Hong Kong FA has done a lot as well, and it has built a very good foundation for soccer development in Hong Kong. And also it has formulated training courses which would help to uniform and steer the style of play in Hong Kong football. And it has also provided a framework and tools to nurture better players. And also they have increased the board membership by 5 independent directors in order to enhance internal integrity management and transparency. As for the Cheung Kwan O Training Center, it can be commissioned in the 3rd quarter this year. However, in other areas, the Hong Kong FA has to make better progress, say for example the men's team and the women's team, and also the audienceship of Hong Kong Premier League, and also sustainable development for career soccer. We don't see any particular indication that the men's and women's teams rankings could reach the targets as set down in the 5-year plan. And also the box office of Hong Kong Premier League is 20% lower than the target set in the 5-year plan. We believe there should be more liaison done in order to seek more support, and the Hong Kong FA should reduce its reliance on public support. It has to generate more commercial revenue in order to support its own expenses. We have already related to the Hong Kong FA these views, and we have asked them to submit improvement measures. And now we welcome members' views on the midterm review result and also the way forward for Hong Kong soccer development. Okay, now we can take questions. Those who have already registered to speak are as follows: Holden Chow, Jimmy Ng, Edward Lau, Pierre Chan, Michael Look, UC Wing, Ray Chan, and myself. Altogether 8 members. I think we can act according to convention, and that is 4 minutes for each member, including a reply. Holden Chow. Thank you, Chairman. It is the wish of the people to promote soccer. I'd like to ask a question about the strategic plan. May I refer to paragraph 20 of the paper about the Premier League? I can see that the 1,500 target has not been achieved, and that is the average attendance. Well, you have been promoting it, but you have not achieved the interim target attendance of 1,500. I'd like to ask the Bureau what it has done to promote attendance at Hong Kong Premier League, and what else can be done. Also, Para 19, some clubs, as you mentioned, have not achieved the license requirements. I'd like to ask you what you mean by not meeting your requirements by these clubs, and what are you going to do? Acting Secretary, thank you for the questions. Indeed, in terms of attendance at Hong Kong Premier League, the performance is not that satisfactory. The interim average target attendance will be 1,500, but for 2017-18, it is only like 1,200 something. It is higher than, say, in 2015-16, there were only 1,000. And then in 16-19, it was about 920. And then 17-18 is 954. Maybe this year there is the World Cup, so more people have attended. It's like 1,200, but then there's still a difference from the 1,500, which is the target attendance. Now, what should we do? Of course, we have to work alongside the Hong Kong FA. We will make recommendations to the Hong Kong FA as to how they can attract more people to watch soccer on site, and then we can talk to the LCSD to see how we can boost the atmosphere at venue, so people don't only come to watch a soccer match, but they actually enjoy the experience of going to the stadium. As to the clubs and whether they are meeting requirements, can I defer to Mr. Brian Leung to say something? Mr. Leung. About the clubs, we follow AFC. We hope that we can enhance the governance and financial management of Hong Kong football clubs. We hope they can improve on all aspects. And that is why we have a licensing section which asks every club to take out a license. Because if we go for AFC and and also the AFC elite matches, if we don't comply with their requirements, they won't let us play. However, the clubs may lack resources. We hope we will be assisting these clubs so that they can meet requirements and so that they can be qualified for AFC matches. Thank you. Can I please follow up? The chairman of Hong Kong FA said they do not meet all the requirements. I'd like to ask you, is it because of a lack of resources? If that's the case, it's comparatively easy. It's just a matter of resources. But I don't know whether there are other reasons for them not meeting requirements. Well, the AFC requirements are numerous. If you want a license, there are many, many requirements. And in the FA, we have a task force in order to help these clubs. If you read the requirements, it is not easy to meet all of them. They ask you to audit your accounts, and you have to meet all the requirements. The AFC also has a licensing section. We have a licensing section. We can issue the license, and then they still have to apply for an AFC license. And the license will be approved only after intensive checking. Mr. Jimmy Ng. Thank you, Chairman. The paper mentions the promotion of grassroots and youth and girls and women's football and futsal and also coach, etc. We are very happy. However, they fall short of getting sponsorship and also other areas. Well, to promote football, we need a good plan, but we also need financial resources. And every year, the administration can give the Hong Kong FA up to 25 million. I'd like to ask whether in the past 3 years you have given the Hong Kong FA that maximum amount allowable. If not, will you increase the funding next year or in the next 5-year period? Well, the administration says the Hong Kong FA should rely more on commercial sponsorship, but will you consider increasing, matching commercial sponsorship dollar for dollar? Can you do that? And will you consider when the ranking for the Hong Kong representative team or when the attendance rate at Hong Kong Premier League reaches a certain level, then you can give them more allocation? Well, people say that fans is the 12th player. Can you not sponsor them more so that fans do not need to pay for tickets with such a high price? Or if there is anyone in need, you can allow them to watch matches for free so that you can boost the attendance and so that you can also develop soccer in Hong Kong. Thank you very much. About financial resources, we have already given the Hong Kong FA a lot of resources. In the triennium during Project Phoenix, we have given them over $50 million. And then after that, starting from 2015, we have the 5-year strategic plan. And every year we are going to give them $25 million. And this will take us through to the beginning of the year. And up to that time, we have given Hong Kong FA $62 million. And in fact, the LCSD also gives about $20 million to Hong Kong FA every year, and Jockey Club also gives $25 million to the Hong Kong FA to develop soccer. And of course, the more the merrier, but we believe we are using public money, and also public sponsorship should not be the only source of finance for the Hong Kong FA. We like the Hong Kong FA to work harder to seek commercial sponsorship, but they have done quite well. In 2017, they have secured like $10 million in terms of commercial sponsorship, and in 17-18, they are securing $10.6 million. So there is a growth in terms of commercial sponsorship, but we hope the Hong Kong FA can do even more. As we were saying, about the attendance, we want to make the venue attractive, but then the atmosphere is also important. If there is commercial sponsorship, we believe the atmosphere will become even more heated.
Regarding the admission tickets, I would defer to the Commissioner to take your question. Let me supplement. First of all, Apart from the subsidies mentioned by the Secretary, we also subsidize the district football teams across the territory, all 18 of them, on an annual basis. We have 3 teams under the Hong Kong Premier League. We give funding of 1.5 million per year, and we're going to increase the amount of subsidy. As for ticketing, of course, we want to enhance promotion, and we want to also promote the Hong Kong Premier League, but this is also the responsibility of the football clubs. The football clubs also play a very crucial role because for the football matches, free admission tickets are already given out, and at the moment the ticket price is $80, but the price varies depending on the sales strategy of football clubs. We would like the Hong Kong Football Association to discuss with individual football clubs on the pricing of tickets. Mr. Edward Lau. Thank you, Chairman. In the past, we have had different schemes, just like the 5-year plan, but they were not effective. And regarding the major performance indicators, I could see that, for example, in terms of ranking and attendance and membership, you're not meeting target. The number of hits on the website, as well as sponsorship, likewise, you're not meeting these targets. These are indicators and targets, and it's really disappointing that you're not meeting them. You need to conduct a review. Why is it that despite so many projects and plans, you are not achieving the result that you need to? Now, according to the Commissioner, you have subsidies for the district football teams, but what about the Hong Kong Premier League? Now, if you want to improve the Hong Kong Premier League, first of all, you need to improve the football teams. And, of course, you need commercial sponsorship on top of government subsidies. Is there any incentive for the business sector to support football in Hong Kong? I remember when I was young, we had different commercial sponsorships sponsoring football in Hong Kong, but we're having fewer sponsors. And for South China, because of funding issues, the team can no longer stay in the Hong Kong PL. So you need to consider how to incentivize the business sector to sponsor football in Hong Kong so that they can benefit. And also perhaps you can discuss with the mainland as to how Hong Kong football teams can take part in the China Premier League. Because the pay for football players in the China Premier League is so much higher, and the football players are incentivized, especially for Division A players. So perhaps local football clubs can also use this as a goal. Last point, as I've said before, let's not talk about revenue from the sale of broadcasting rights. In the past, when the ATV broadcast football matches, well, not only that there was not any advertising income, the football clubs and the associations had to foot the bill for the broadcasting of matches. So how can you make sure that you meet the target? Thank you, Mr. Lau, for your questions and comments, and thank you for your concern about football development in Hong Kong. As I mentioned in the opening remark, in terms of the interim targets, we're meeting some of the targets in terms of a ranking and the attendance to Hong Kong PL matches. Indeed, we are falling behind the target, but in other areas, such as youth football development, the participation rate increased by 40%, and for women's football, it increased by 70%, and so it's very encouraging. As for futsal, the participation attendance number of participants reached 19,000, exceeding our target by 4,000. And we also have very good results regarding youth development. Of course, there is room for improvement regarding the overall performance and attendance. So we continue to join hands with the Hong Kong FA to see how we can improve things. Well, no time, sorry. Wait for another round, please. You can supplement later. Sorry, Commissioner, he would like to speak as well. Very briefly, please. Well, simply put, I think in terms of the government's incentive, I think more importantly we should consider the market value of Hong Kong PL, and we should rely on the Hong Kong FA and the football club's effort. As for China Premier League, well, the investment comes in sums of $100 million. So as to whether Hong Kong football teams can take part in the China Premier League is a matter of how much we're going to invest in it. Last year, we discussed with the Football Association of Mainland, and now there is a relaxation of requirement, and Hong Kong football players can now play in the Division A matches of the China Premier League. I think this will help in enhancing their level and their development. I want to remind members that when you ask questions, don't spend 3.5 minutes in asking your question, leaving only 30 seconds for the administration to reply. Dr. Pierre Chen.
I
think the biggest issue has to do with elite football and the scoring mechanism, and I'm referring to CB bracket 21836/1718 bracket 02, and for 11-a-side football and the AFC ranking, etc. As mentioned just now, you're meeting some of the targets only, but the point is only one team can take part in the match each time. What about swimming, fencing, cycling? For these kind of sports, we can have different athletes taking part in the same competition or same event, and this will increase our chance in winning, because we're investing in one football team to take part in one match. That's the case. That's the problem regarding the AFC matches. Futsal is one way as a starting point to increase our chances, because we don't need substantial investment. Point number 3, point 11, page 3 of the paper, refers to futsal. But according to the government's plan, you're placing focus on attracting students to take part in futsal training courses, fun days, etc. Now, on the 14th of June 2017, I put a question to the government about futsal in Hong Kong, whether there are any venues up to which are indoor venues that can comply with international standards. There are 3, one in Shek Kip Mei, the other in Ma On Shan, and the third one in Cheung Kwan O. These are multi-purpose football indoor games halls, and before a match you would put adhesive tapes on the floor to set the boundary of the pitch. But the problem is this: we do not have a lot of opportunities of playing football. And second, the problem with hardware is that very often for futsal venues, they come with walls but not with a ceiling or not with a canopy. So we can't hold international futsal games. So perhaps you should remove the fences and you can include the cover. The second problem with hardware is that for 11-a-side football pitches or football pitches at the district level, we have artificial artificial turf pitches that are suitable for 7-a-side football. In the past, when we were young, we would just go down to a football pitch downstairs of our home, the playground, to play football. But now the football pitches are all fenced up, and you need to wear football trainers, and there is also a caretaker. Well, let me respond to some of the questions. I agree with Dr. Chen that we must improve the venues to develop football, and we hope we can build more football pitches starting from 2015. For artificial and natural turf pitches, the figure stood at 79, but now we have 82. For artificial turf pitches, the figure increased from 28 to 40 now. For artificial turf pitches, it comes with advantage, because for natural turf pitches we can only allow 60 sessions a month, but for artificial turf we can allow 270 sessions a month. So there will be more available slots for football players. Commissioner, let's see if we have time. Very briefly, Dr. Chen raised 2 points. We have noticed the problems on the elite sports scoring system last year in the policy address. We have a 5-year plan on team sports development. More resources will be deployed to team-based sports so that they can aim themselves at winning at the Asia Games, and so that they can become part of the elite sports program. And at the same time, we'll also set up a scoring system for elite teams, which will be a separate system from individual elite athletes. Second, on futsal, again, we're working on it. We have capital works projects. We have tabled the funding application, and there will be more. That is, we're going to tear down the walls of the old futsal venues, and for hard pitches, we are going to build more futsal pitches. And for artificial turf pitches, if circumstances permit, we'll try to build more 11-a-side football pitches instead of 7-a-side. Mr. Michael Lok, let me declare the interest that my son is in a youth squad in one of the teams of Hong Kong PL, and I also joined a football team. Regarding the 5-year plan, the public has expectations, and of course I see that you have done quite some good work in terms of grassroots and youth football. As for other areas, you are far from meeting the target. In particular, the attendance of Hong Kong PL is not 1,200. In fact, it's just some 900. 1,200 you could celebrate. In fact, 1,200 referred to the opening season for September 2017. And for the defending teams ranking the bottom at the lowest rank of the division, well, the attendance was far worse. But that's not my point. The point is the government doesn't understand the problem. It's not the difference between 1,200 or 1,500. You're not even meeting 1,200 target. So how are you going to meet the target of 2,500? One of the targets is that you need to set up an independent Premier League system, which is separate from the Hong Kong FA, and I think the CEDB should also participate in the process, because if you want to develop elite sports with commercial elements, now we can rely on, for example, RTHK. Because RTHK sometimes play reruns of radio programs, and last year I discussed it with the Hong Kong FA. I understand that the RTHK is short of resources, so can we have sponsorship for the direct live broadcast of Hong Kong PL games to be broadcast by the RTHK channels?
I think it's important to bring soccer to the people. So can HAB provide the sponsorship? If you can boost it, then there will be more commercial sponsorship. I think the CED Bureau can help because you can provide experience of marketing for the football teams, and also you can set up a platform for them, including soccer and other sports, so they can get commercial sponsorship together. And also, and I'm not only talking about soccer, but can you say, for example, provide tax breaks for sports, maybe like innovation and technology industries, you can give them tax breaks up to 200 or 300%. So I think the government and the commercial sector should both support. I don't have enough time, Chairman, and I have heard from my football club friends that they would like to come to LegCo to discuss on the same platform. I hope we can have a public hearing. Secretary, thank you very much for the questions. I know that Mr. Luke has always supported soccer and he plays it personally. I hope that not just at this panel, but I'd like to hear from you on other occasions as well. Mr. Luke talks about industrialization. I think it's a very good and new suggestion. In overseas countries, many sports are industrialized. I'll take this back to my colleagues in the Bureau to see what can be done. Can we commercialize it and can we industrialize it, and also we can boost it in other areas? If it ventures outside the jurisdiction of our bureau, we'll take it up with other bureaus. As for attendance for Hong Kong Premier League, indeed it's not just for Hong Kong FA or the government or the clubs. The business sector and the media hopefully can also chip in. Hong Kong people love to play and watch soccer. We can do this with one heart and one mind. Next one, Mr. Yu Si-wing. Thank you, Chairman. We can say soccer is the most favorite sport around the world. We think there should be more support by government. After the funding, you are quantifying the targets, and I think that's excellent. I hope we can have quantifying the targets approach for other funding by government, so that there can also be some pressure to be brought on the organization receiving the sponsorship. I'd like to talk about the Premier League. In fact, in other countries, people get a big award if they win in the Premier League, and so that you can secure commercial sponsorship. I'd like to know whether you will take this up with the Hong Kong FA with regard to the prize money. Can we give them more sponsorship so the organizers will have more incentive? Otherwise, they will put in the money and then there is no reward and it's not attractive. So that's the problem. And then the attendance and also the hit rate of the website, these are not satisfactory, especially the hit rate of the website. I think that's a big problem because the trend is for young people to go online. If there is a lack of hits, it's a big problem. But then the data bank, I think it's operating better than we hope. So I'd like you to look at improving your online platform. And also about soccer fans data bank. Can you be more interactive and do something to encourage them to watch soccer on site? If you have a bigger data bank, then there would also be more attendance as a result. Can you allow the data bank to be more interactive? Thank you for the questions. We thank Mr. Yu for his support for the target quantification strategy. This is different from Project Phoenix. Project Phoenix aims very high, but for this strategic plan, we are very pragmatic and we tend to keep this approach for future. As for the prize money and then the rewards, can I ask the Commissioner to respond? Chairman, Mr. Yu's proposal is excellent. We agree that whether it is about packaging, marketing, and also the sales strategy for Hong Kong Premier League. I think the Hong Kong FA has to do more, including using its online platform. At present, the biggest sponsorship for Hong Kong FA comes from government and secondly from the Jockey Club. But we want them to get more sponsorship from private and business organizations. If you need the business sector to take part, you must enhance the quality of the product. So in this regard, we want the Hong Kong MA to do more. And then about the prize money. If we can get larger sponsors and larger amounts of sponsorship, then we can pay the winning team a bigger prize. As we said in the report, we hope the Hong Kong FA can do some specific work in the remaining year or so, so we can have some improvement. Chairman, apart from the prize money, I'm saying that if a team can join the Premier League, well, like in the UK, if you can join the UK Premier League, well, that's already an honor, and then they will be able to attract even better players to join the team. Mr. Ray Chen, he's not here. It's my turn. The secretary said that they can look into tax breaks. I'm a little disappointed. 20 years ago when I was a member, I already said that with regard to culture, recreation and sports, we should consider tax breaks so we can support them. 21 years have passed and you are still looking into it. I don't think that works. Secondly, if I look at this report, well, we know that some indicators have been achieved and we should give them recognition, say about grassroots and youth football, etc. However, as for the future, we want soccer to become a career. But there is another important point, and that is you should allow it to be industrialized. However, to me, we have not done enough in this regard. We have more people in youth football, so you are improving the foundation for soccer development. But for these young players, how can we allow them, and especially the parents, how can we convince parents that young people can have soccer as a career? Right now, the situation is not satisfactory. Look at the salaries and remuneration for career players. They are on the low side. And also, if they retire, what is the arrangement for them? There is insufficient support. How can we industrialize soccer playing? What kind of measures can you think of to allow career players to start and then continue with their career? Let me kick off and then I'll defer to the Commissioner. Certainly, we are aware of that. To develop soccer, we need good players, and training itself is not sufficient. There must be incentives for soccer to have the appeal. And later on, the Commissioner can comment on this point. We certainly are concerned about arrangements after retirement. The SFNOC launched that plan in 2008, and we have served over 1,000 people. We will provide education and career and also life skills as a kind of training for athletes. As for the remuneration for athletes, I think there has been some good news recently. Can I defer to the Commissioner? Chairman, a few aspects. One, the present phenomenon. In recent years, the remuneration for Hong Kong footballers has gone up. In the coming season, we have heard football clubs say that local players have quite a big jump in their salary because a few clubs are trying to secure players among themselves. We think this is a good phenomenon. Last year, together with the Hong Kong FA, we talked to the China football organizations, and more players can now join the China Premier League and other teams, and they are quite well remunerated. And then for young people, very often they had to choose between their academic studies and soccer playing. But in recent years, we have many more support in terms of scholarships. So footballers can consider parallel training. Say Chen Chen Lok, he just graduated from the Baptist University. And in fact, in the past few years, he was on a club joining the Premier League, and yet he continued to read his degree. This is a very good example. And I can see that there is more support among parents now. Deputy Chairman, if I may look at the 5-year plan starting in 2015, it is a very detailed plan. It has 10 main targets and also the factors affecting soccer development. And to turn the tide around, you say that you should introduce a soccer course. I'd like to know how it is now going on. You talk about a territorial kind of soccer course. And also, game changer 2, that there should be preschool education. However, where else can I see it? How was that launched? And are you providing any courses in this regard? So with regard to preschool education in soccer, what have you done and what is the progress? Well, you have grassroots. You talked a lot about that, and you have achieved something. But if we should go back to stage 1, preschool and early years education, this is game changer number 2. What have you done, and do you have a plan to promote this more amongst young children? And of course, members showed concern about promotion ladder for footballers. And in the 5-year plan, you made proposals for a union for footballers to be set up. Is there any progress in this regard? Can I defer to the Commissioner, please? Number 1, about the Hong Kong football curriculum. In 2015, the Hong Kong FA said that it would draw up a uniform style for Hong Kong footballers, and that this will apply to the coaches for different levels, and so that they can apply it in the training courses. The Hong Kong football curriculum has been completed, and it will be updated from time to time. In the report, we have said that in formulating the curriculum, we said that they should have communicated more with other people. The football curriculum is here, but some coaches don't really understand how it should be followed and used. So we hope they can do more to implement the curriculum. As for preschool and early years education, this was a proposal by Hong Kong FA in 2015. But in the end, we did not put any target in the strategic plan. Well, when you talk about preschool, we are talking about toddlers, and we would be talking about promotion only, I think, but then there will not be any practical courses, I believe. Maybe the Hong Kong Football Association can add? Yes. With regard to children, we are doing a lot. We have many flourishing courses. In a school, there are 1,000 students from the years 2 to 6, and parents are sending their children to football schools. They think this is better than keeping the children at home. The children are learning a lot. They are learning to get along with others, and they think it's worth the while. And Hong Kong football schools, therefore, are developing fast. I don't have the exact figures now, but I know that the numbers are big.
Anything to add? Yes, in relation to the welfare of footballers and the setting up of unions. I understand that there is yet any progress in relation to setting up unions. As for welfare issues, it is not a simple issue because football players belong to different football clubs. So the Hong Kong FA has no right to interfere with how an individual football club deals with a footballer. Mr. Au Lok Him, first of all, I hope the administration can give us a breakdown of the $25 million subsidy to Hong Kong FA about how money is spent, because according to some, the funding is used to support the hierarchy of the Hong Kong FA. I think it is important that the public knows how the $25 million funding is spent. And I'd also like to talk about the feasibility of having commercial sponsorships. I hope that the HAB would take note of this. It is really a major issue. We have $9.64 million of income from advertising this year, and it's a drop. But in fact, we have made different suggestions to make Hong Kong football better. First, tax exemption. We are giving tax concessions to the I&T industry, etc. And if Hong Kong government is really supporting the development of sports in Hong Kong, in this year's policy address, there should be a proposal to offer tax breaks for football. And then, according to the reply, there is no such need as Hong Kong already has a low tax regime. But sports is a kind of industry. So, Secretary, would you discuss with the Chief Executive that commercial sponsors should enjoy some tax breaks? And second point, whether it is impossible to allow football betting on local matches. Well, for Hong Kong Jockey Club, they offer bets on, a Japanese Division B football and even Swedish football. So why not local football? Over the years, we have ignored this issue, but it is, in fact, related to the promotion of football in Hong Kong as a commercial sport. I have a third question. I think this hasn't been discussed by anyone, and that is about TV broadcast. Will the government give an undertaking that it will discuss with the RTHK about the purchase of broadcasting rights? Thank you. Secretary, I'll try to respond to the question. Thank you for the comments and the questions. As mentioned by other members, we note the point, and definitely we will relay the message to the relevant policy bureau about broadcasting by RTHK. Some members just now already mentioned this point, and again, we're going to relay this message to the relevant policy bureau and departments and see and explore the feasibility. As for football betting, our position is this. First of all, the Hong Kong SAR government does not encourage football betting, so you should not have legalized it in the first place. Well, football betting is legalized because of the local situation. My observation is that for Japan Football League, Premier League, if this is also offered by the Hong Kong Jockey Club, then why not local football matches? Well, that is your observation, but we don't really see how football betting can help develop football in Hong Kong. So I'm afraid at this moment we are not allowing any betting on gambling on football, local matches. Next, Mr. Leung Chi-Chung. Well, since the Project Phoenix, according to the report and the quantifiable targets, there have been some major improvements, especially on grassroots and youth football. But does it include football schools outside Hong Kong FA? Because you have Hong Kong FA members. Some football clubs may not be your member. That is why we also commend you for this project. And about commercializing football, my take is how we can have wider recognition among the public of our football games. Well, the problem is the football matches at the moment are not really up to standard, or else we should have seen a surge in attendance. In the 1970s and 80s, we used to go to football matches, and the standards at that time were really good. So how are we going to make football matches more exciting? A few years ago, I heard about Hong Kong FA's suggestions. For example, participating in Guangzhou matches or the national matches, so that we can also have a Hong Kong team to take part in the China Premier League. And perhaps some matches can be held at the venues in Hong Kong. Would it be a direction for promoting football in Hong Kong and increasing attendance? Perhaps spectators from Guangdong province can come to Hong Kong to view football matches, and we can create a better atmosphere. I don't know whether our standard is not really up to theirs, so that in the end we didn't have their support. Anyway, any new thinking? Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Leung, for your questions. Let me start by answering his question, and then Commissioner can supplement. And in the 1970s and 80s, indeed, during the golden days of football in Hong Kong, we had very good attendance, and we all witnessed how football fans would give very strong support to the footballers. But circumstances have changed since 1970s and 80s. And back then, for example, matches were not broadcast, but now we have broadcasts of international football matches as well as local matches, and this would affect attendance. But of course, we can work on hardware, the supporting hardware and other areas, so that we can build a better atmosphere to increase the audienceship. As for football matches with mainland teams, we have such matches, for example, with Guangdong province teams, but I'll see if the Commissioner has anything to add. First of all, about the football academy. We have a lot of academies in the private sector, and they are not counted towards the Hong Kong FA grassroots football program. About attendance, let me give you some figures. In the 1970s, we had on average 6,000, and then in the 80s, 2,000. In fact, in the 80s, some 1,000, not very far from what we're having now, but of course there is room for improvement. About the China Premier League, I already answered the other member's question. It has to do with our system and the amount of investment. For China Premier League, the top-ranking teams have an investment amount of billions of dollars. So it's a question of whether we would input the same amount of money in our local teams. Well, Mr. Leung, we are already discussing with the China Football Association. They would like to hold the Bay Area League, and Hong Kong is included. We have about 11 teams, and it would be very attractive. We talk about Hong Kong Premier League, and I have been in the Hong Kong FA for over 10 years. I don't see a future. It's really difficult for a city to support the Premier League, and it takes $20–30 million a year. So a lot of investment will be needed, but we can join hands with the Bay Area. At the same time, of course, we need to have our own Premier League. About the standard of matches, when I was chairman, in the beginning we had only 100 and 200 spectators, but now we can have full house. So I can say that Hong Kong spectators really support our local team. As for Hong Kong Premier League, well, if you have been to one of those matches, please raise your hand. I feel encouraged, but not many Hong Kong people would go. To have a Hong Kong delegation, a Hong Kong team, is really our goal. Last member to speak. We can give a second round to Dr. Pierre Chan. Anyone else? 3? Second round? I'll do that later. Let's give Mr. Andrew Wen the first round. I have a comment to make and a question. Some other members already mentioned that commercialization is a way out. China Premier League is one answer, but commercialization is not the only answer. I agree that, of course, we need to have some form of commercialization. In the past, as some members have mentioned, we have had our golden days. When I was young, when I was in my primary school, we had Seiko, Bulova, and South China, all 3 famous teams. And I have a suggestion that is tax concession, as mentioned by other members. We should allow tax concessions for commercial sponsors, because on the one hand, you're subsidizing the teams and you're not giving tax concessions to commercial sponsorship. In the end, the government will be using its own money entirely. And second point, can you consider subsidizing local football teams to engage some international consultants which are soon to retire? And recently we have had an example, and in other countries such as Japan, it's also happened before, and I think this will give us a boost of confidence. During that time, in the J-League era, part of the investment was on this area. Well, this is just my humble comments. I see that nobody has raised this issue, but I do believe it will help enhance our standards and pull us closer to international matches. Next, it will be quite difficult for individual sports clubs to subsidize footballers. What about the Hong Kong FA providing subsidies for Hong Kong footballers with potential to receive overseas training? They can follow other internationally renowned teams in the training programs, and I think that would be helpful in helping them hone their skills. Now, for Project Phoenix and other programs, I want to know whether you can work with other academies in Hong Kong for children with good potential. Apart from participating in the Hong Kong FA programs, can we also allow these children to take part in the other academies? Because we have the Academy of Chelsea in Hong Kong, and my child also once participated in that academy. Because we need to cultivate a sense of identity, we need to enhance the training, etc., and it would be good for the candidate. Let me first take your question on tax breaks. We note members' views, but as mentioned just now, the government has input a lot of resources, some $60 million already. Well, yes, I know that, and we'll continue to work on it. As for engaging retired or retiring footballers to train Hong Kong footballers, this is not a simple issue.
Well, you have to choose the right ones. Say if they are from Poland, well, yes, they can prove to be attractive. But then sometimes, well, in the past we did that and then there was not a lot of effect. So it's up to the teams to choose the footballers they like. As for the soccer schools and the Hong Kong football curriculum, well, I understand young people are attending different schools and they are also following the Hong Kong FA curriculum. I don't think there is any conflict between the two. As for sending our football players for training overseas, in the 5-year strategic plan, we have put aside $25 million for that purpose. As to what we can do, it depends on the future development. As for sending football players out, well, it depends whether the football players themselves have contracts with their clubs, and sometimes there are issues to be resolved, but that can be studied by the Hong Kong FA. A few members would like to have a second round. I drew a line for the first round, but then Mr. Ted Hui would like to ask questions. Why don't I do this? I'll allow Ted Hui to ask questions, but then you must comply with the 2-minute rule for the second round only. In the 5-year strategic plan, it is said that you should have a strategy for developing football facilities and also to provide high-quality venues. But the paper speaks very little about venues, apart from the Cheng Kuen O Soccer Training Center, which will be commissioned. Have you done anything to develop venues, let's say to increase the number and also improve their quality? There is a proposal, like we have 10 Premier League football clubs, but only Kit Chi has its own dedicated venue. Can you not follow this approach to provide such venues and also allow them to use the Cheng Kuen O Soccer Training Center? Thank you for the question. Venues are important, we understand. When I answered members, I said that we are steadily increasing the number of football venues, especially the artificial turf ones. They can provide 4 times the use as compared to natural turf pitches. What about dedicated venues? Can I defer to the Commissioner? Chairman, a few years ago, the LCSD, together with the Hong Kong FA, assigned home grounds to the Premier League teams. They also have their training grounds. Say for one PL team, its home ground is in Mong Kok, but it has also got another training ground. This has been done, but Kit Chi is operating with another mode. We provide the land, and Kit Chi got the Jockey Club and other people to provide the money to build their own facility. If any club has such a plan, we are happy to see and what we can do. 3 members and then myself. For the second round, I'll draw a line there. So Dr. Pierre Chan, Edward Lau, Ngao Nok Hin, and myself. 2 minutes each. Dr. Pierre Chan. Thank you, Chairman. Very often, when we talk about soccer, we may be talking about our past laurels. But to me, soccer matches are boring. Even World Cup matches, there may be 1 goal in an entire 90 minutes. The thing is, you don't like soccer just because the matches are so enticing. However, if you look at World Cup, soccer allows people to unite together. That is the attraction. And then let me talk about the hardware. You mentioned grassroots football. In my district, we have the Cherry Street soccer pitch. It is the first generation 7-a-side artificial turf. But very often I can't use it because there are restrictions on venue use. The secretary said you are providing many more artificial turf venues, but they are only for 7-a-side and they are fenced off. And even in the district, we find it not very useful. And maybe I will use the venue only once every few years. Recently, I brought the wrong shoes to go to that venue, and I have to use a different kind of soccer boots. Well, it's okay if it's 7-a-side. Look at McPherson and Jordan. It is easier for us if it is hard surfaced. And allow me to have 2 futsal venues, so I have more flexibility. Say, if I don't have the money to buy that kind of soccer boots, I can't use an artificial turf pitch, and it is not serving the grassroots. Say, if I don't have the money to buy the right kind of boots, I can't use an artificial turf pitch. Okay, I think the administration has heard you. There is no time for a reply. Edward Lau. Thank you, Chairman. You have done well with grassroots football. I believe the administration and the Hong Kong FA have worked hard on it. When I was young, I took part in Uncle MacDonald soccer. I don't know whether it's still there, but it worked for me. But as I said, after I grew up and also when other footballers grow up, is there a way out for them? Would parents be willing to allow their children to continue to play football? Football is different. It's a team sport. It is not an individual sport, and the venue is important. Chairman, you mentioned Greater Bay Area soccer matches. Well, it's a good attempt, but of course you allow Hong Kong footballers more career opportunities, and also we can have soccer matches which are of a higher quality. Do you have any timetable for doing this? I asked you whether you can, say, for example, broadcast soccer programs, say on RTHK, and also can you have live broadcast of Hong Kong soccer matches? Thank you. I think that's an excellent suggestion. We'll go back and follow up with the relevant departments. I think this will go a long way to promote soccer. Well, apart from our suggestion of tax breaks, if you are a team with commercial sponsorship, you definitely would like to showcase football as well as your sponsor. Apart from Greater Bay Area, the China Premier League is more pragmatic. It may cost $100 million, but still people are willing because they can get some returns. Ngô Nhat Hinh. Chairman, I'll emphasize again that I hope that in the policy address and the budget for next year, Undersecretary, please go back and talk about live broadcast and also tax concessions. Maybe you can let me know how long it will take for you to do this. In this round, I'd like to ask about targets for the football clubs. In the Hong Kong Planning Standards and Guidelines, it is said that there should be a soccer pitch for every 100,000 population. We are increasing the number of pitches, but even if we have one in Tseung Kwan O and another one in Kai Tak, you should not stop providing venues. You need a plan for future development. We were watching the World Cup and we envy Iceland. In Iceland, they had the first venue 18 years ago, and now they have 13 soccer complexes, and that was done within just 18 years. Can you not tell us whether you have a plan to build more venues? I agree with Dr. Pierre Chan. It is a kind of culture building. Many commentators may be doing a lot to try to heat up the atmosphere, but first of all, you need venues. Commissioner, a short reply, Chairman. Our work on the hardware side will not stop. We have a Chongquan Soccer Center, and then we have the High Tech, and then in our 5-year recreational and cultural plan, we have 9 venues in the plan, some for 5 aside, some for 11 aside. Do you also have venues that you think will be allocated to clubs? Well, if there are more venues, there will be more we can do for the clubs. Lastly, my own follow-up questions. Some quarters say that we have too many people from outside on our teams, so that there is too little room for local footballers to develop their career. In this review, you have not touched upon that. Now, I'd like to ask the Hong Kong MFA for your view. We are hiring from outside, and this may have an impact on the sense of belonging amongst fans, and then it may affect the promotion ladder for local football players. Can I ask Mr. Brian Leung of Hong Kong FA to reply? Chairman, we have discussed this for a long time, and that is the quota for outside players. But clubs have told us that if they cannot get good players from outside, we cannot improve. Look at other countries. If you look at their Premier League as well, they also have a lot of outside players, and that is a lot of exchange. If you look at the British Premier League, the entire Liverpool team is made up of outside players. However, we are trying to limit it to 4 outside players, and then the rest of the team should be made up of local footballers. And in fact, local footballers have achieved a lot more improvement, and their remuneration package has been much improved. As the Commissioner said, we are in fact exporting footballers to China. If they play at China Premier League, they are paid 10 times what they are paid in Hong Kong. That is why young footballers are trying very hard. They are trying to go beyond Hong Kong. Well, I'm not saying that there are too many. I just like you to tell members what your view is. In fact, all clubs would like to have outside players, or else the attendance may even fall more. We have overrun by a wide margin. I believe we should wrap up our discussion on this item here. Mr. Michael Look said that we should hold a public hearing for the soccer field to express views. But this is our last meeting for the year, and I will leave this with the clerk. If necessary, we can revive this when we meet again after the summer. Members will support that, right? Okay. That's it for this item. Let's go to the next one. Use of public open space managed by the LCSD. Attending for this item, we still have Mr. Jack Chan, Acting Secretary for Home Affairs, Ms. Michelle Lee, Director of LCSD, and then Mrs. Doris Falk, Assistant Director, LCSD. First, I'd like to ask the Assistant Secretary to take us through the paper. Thank you, Chairman. This paper briefs members on the use of public open space managed by the LCSD. The LCSD is responsible for developing and managing different parks and playgrounds in Hong Kong for the use and enjoyment of the public, so we can promote a healthy lifestyle and we can promote sport for all. In terms of public open space, the LCSD is managing over 1,500 parks and playgrounds of various sizes, providing different kinds of leisure and recreational facilities, such as parks, sitting out areas, pet gardens, football pitches, and outdoor fitness areas, etc. the public have different views about the use of such public open space. When the LCSD manages these places, they will try to understand and balance the needs of different kinds of users, and they will try to map out appropriate policies and measures so different users can harmoniously and inclusively and safely use such parks and playgrounds to undertake different kinds of activities that will benefit their mental and physical health.
No.
Because of change in the environment, we have brought in different facilities, and to meet the public's expectation or rising expectation on the LCSD facilities, we will continue to implement programs and improve our facilities to enhance our recreational and leisure services, and also to bring a better experience for the public. The paper sets out the new management measures. For example, suitable parks will be made open for children to play the balance bikes. This is one of our new initiatives. I ask members to note the paper and will be happy to take questions from members. All right. I'll throw open the floor, and we have on the list Mr. Yu Siwing, Mr. Ray Chen, Mr. Edward Lau, myself, Mr. Ted Hui, Mr. Leung Chi Chung, Mr. Olok Him, Ms. Tanya Chan, who would like to ask questions. Any more? Mr. Frankie? All right. Altogether 9 members. We can allow some time, so 4 minutes, questions and answers included. Let's start with Mr. Yu Siwing. Thank you, Chairman. First question about Tamar Park. Earlier, an angling zone, fishing zone was set up. Well, I have taken a look at the facility, and there is a wash basin, there is seating, there is also racks for placing fishing lines, and I do think that we have waterfront promenades all over Hong Kong, and we can set up angling zones so that there will be more choices for the public to enjoy their leisure times. Basically, this spot is not an ideal location because right next to that zone you have reclamation works going on, so definitely you won't be catching a lot of fish. So you need to think more carefully how you can meet your target. And about the children's playground, I see that there is improvement. It's more colorful, etc. But I don't know whether the government has any plan to replace the facilities in other areas following the Tuen Mun Park example, so that you will bring some fresh facilities to other districts. And in the parks in the morning, we have elderly people doing morning exercises there. I wonder if you can arrange for, say, a coach in the major parks to give lessons to the elderly once or twice a week, so that apart from hardware, you can enhance the software as well. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Member, for the questions. Let me give a start, and perhaps the Director can give a response. About fishing, it's quite a popular activity in Hong Kong. We also want to look for suitable locations to allow the public to practice fishing. But of course, it's not an easy task. It has to be close to the waterfront, and it also has to be compatible with other uses in the vicinity. For example, there may be a pet garden, or there may be a jogging trail nearby, and it may not be very suitable. As to whether we can have fitness trainers or coaches in parks, I'll defer to the Director to take your question. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Member, for the question. For the waterfront promenade parks managed by the LCSD, we do allow recreational angling or fishing, and we also have a pilot scheme on an angling zone, and of course in selecting locations we will discuss with the district councils, but we also welcome proposals from different districts not currently on our list. We welcome suggestions from the public. And as mentioned in the paper, for Tuen Mun Park we have a pilot scheme by adopting innovative design concepts. After its commissioning in the third quarter of 2018, we will review this experience and see whether in other districts we can adopt the same planning and design approach in terms of having inclusive recreational facilities. Now, on the other issue, first of all, under the LCSD discusses with the district councils on holding certain recreational activities, some of which may be held in parks managed by the LCSD. At the same time, we welcome any free-forming activities by members of the public in the park, as long as they do not cause a nuisance to other users. Next, Mr. Ray Chan. Thank you, Chairman. I have a question on paragraph 8 of the paper, pet gardens. Well, Under Secretary, you may recall Ms. Claudia Mo would always ask you to change the title from pet gardens to animal gardens. So that has just come to mind. In recent years, I see from the paper that the number of pet gardens has increased, and at the PWSC meetings in approving funding applications for new recreational facilities, I see that you have been increasing pet gardens, and I agree with your direction. But in 2018-19, you're going to provide 3 new pet gardens only, according to the paper. I don't think this is sufficient, because apart from new pet gardens in new parks, even in existing parks, you can provide pet garden facilities. So is it possible to provide additional pet gardens in existing parks? And there are also pet accesses provided in 8 parks, including 6 venues provided with pet gardens. I want to explore this issue. At the moment, there is segregation between pet gardens, gardens for pets, and the parks for humans. So apart from the pet gardens, some 40 of them, is it the case that there is no access for pets in parks for humans? Apart from setting aside an area for use by pets, will you consider the feasibility of having some inclusion? Because in other countries, the policy is that, well, is it the same that there is absolute segregation between pets and humans in such recreational facilities, or that would legislative amendments be necessary to have inclusive parks? Thank you, Mr. Ray Chan, for your question on pet gardens or animal gardens. In the past 7 or 8 years, we have built a lot of such pet gardens. In 2010, we only had 19, but now we have increased the number to 48. So to answer Mr. Ray Chan's question, among the 48 pet gardens, 15 of them are standalone pet gardens. 33 are combined with parks, of course, with a separation. And this year we plan to build 3 additional pet gardens. Are they standalone gardens? I think that they are additional pet gardens to the existing parks. And if need be, we can consider whether in existing parks we can provide more pet gardens. But of course, this is not an easy task. We need to consider the conditions, and we also need to get endorsement from district councils, because after all, the facilities will be available for public's use, and it's really crucial that the public supports having a pet garden in a park. And about inclusion, does the public in general support the idea of having non-pet owners share the same recreational space with pet owners with their pets? How about pets accesses in 8 parks, including 6 venues provided with pet gardens and 2 without pet gardens? What is the policy in general? Thank you, member, for the question. Usually, if a pet access is provided, we're talking about a pet garden within a large park, and that pets will need to walk along the path to reach that pet garden. So in fact, we have pet gardens in 7 out of 8 such parks, and for the 3 additional pet gardens in the pipeline, 2 of them will be situated inside the large parks, whereas the remaining one will be a standalone pet garden. Next, Mr. Edward Lau. Thank you, Chairman. Yesterday, regarding children's playground, I discussed the suggestion that there should be more facilities, and I posted my suggestion online, and many parents came back with feedback that there should be more, because at the moment it is insufficient. And the other point is these facilities are too safe. Many parks no longer come with climbers or swings, and according to your paper, we'll try to build more swings, monkey climbers in parks as much as possible. But I don't really see your effort. So can you give me some figures? In how many parks in Hong Kong are there still swings? And what is the reason for not building swings and climbing frames? Because we're seeing fewer such facilities. Thank you for your question. We understand that the public's views on our recreational facilities in children's playgrounds, but safety is important. If they are unsafe, they will not be used and they will be meaningless. So we need to let the public understand that there should be some element of adventure in the children's playgrounds, or that they would not be welcomed by the children. Now, for the Tuen Mun Park, we have 2 parts, the northern portion and southern portion. For the southern portion, there will be a lot of climbing. There will be sensory zones and other elements, so that children playing there will have a sense of adventure. We hope that this will be done by way of a pilot, and we will gauge the public's response after its commissioning in the 3rd quarter of this year. I understand, but I wonder why this is just a pilot scheme, because when I was young, I had enjoyed really long, tall slides, and we also had some good facilities in Sharton Park. It seems that we're going backward, and we are now proceeding with a pilot only. I understand that from the design I have read, well, you only come with 2 round blocks, and that it will be regarded as a facility, as a climber for children, but there are only 2 steps, and it's not really enjoyable. So I wonder if you can install swing sets in parks, regardless of the size of parks at different districts. Second point is mentioned in the paper. The multi-purpose lawns are really lawn areas are really popular outing places for children and adults alike, and we do not have enough of lawn areas. We have a lot of idle sites at the moment. They are fenced up by a wire mesh, and perhaps the government can make use of these idle sites to provide lawn areas for enjoyment by the public.
主席，多謝劉議員嘅提問。我哋明白。
Thank you. We understand the public thirst for lawns. We've done a lot in the past 8 years. From 13.9, we have increased it to 51 lawns, providing 240,000 square meters of lawn, and in one park alone we can provide like 200 square meters. And we have already relaxed the use of the lawns. People can bask in the sun, have a picnic, and sleep on the lawn. They can play Tai Chi. Yes, we'll be looking for idle sites in the districts to see whether we can turn it into leisure grounds. We'll do that, and we welcome suggestions from members. My own questions. The paper says that you will decorate stairs through the city dress-up, blossoming stairs effort, and also city dress-up seats together function. I think this is very good because you integrate arts with our daily lives. Apart from these, do you have any other plans to dress up the city more in other areas? Secondly, flower planting. We are called Hong Kong because there were many incense trees in Hong Kong, but we are losing them. In our parks and playgrounds, will you consider planting more incense trees at appropriate places so we can allow the public to have a bigger sense of belonging by being able to get in touch with these plants of a long history? We agree. Our open public space is not just for leisure and recreation, but we can also enhance the awareness of the public in terms of arts and culture. We will try to dress up the city wherever possible. Last year, it was to commemorate the 20th anniversary of the establishment of the Hong Kong SAR, and we decorated outdoor stairs. This was the activity City Dress Up, blossoming stairs. We renovated the stairs and it was very successful. And then in 20 LCSD venues across the 18 districts, we launched the City Dress Up seats together. We put seats of very different forms in these areas, and the response was very positive. We will be doing more of this in the coming future. We can also operate with software. We mounted the event Horizon Hong Kong, Lumiere Hong Kong, and also Harbour Arts Sculpture Park. We dressed up our public space using sound and light, and it was a cultural event. As for incense trees, may I defer to the director? We plant the right trees in the right places, and we will actively consider using different species, including incense trees. Does any other member want to ask a question in the first round? I have to control time. Seven members will still speak. I'll draw a line there. These are the 7, and then we'll have to close the meeting. Mr. Ted Hui. Thank you. I will assess the LCSD parks and playgrounds It is over-conservative, over-regulated, over-strict and over-protective. As members said, from the point of a parent, children don't like your facilities. They are not challenging. They are not interesting. Just now you said we have to balance integration and safety. Well, that argument doesn't hold water. Parents take children to Japan and children fly down from 5-story, 6-story high slides. Well, Japan is a very advanced country and is regards human lives preciously. But why is it that people can do it and we can't do it? You can see that if you go to Housing Authority recreation grounds and also URA pleasure grounds and also properties on the top side of MTR stations and also at private housing estates, those facilities are much more interesting. However, you are the biggest stakeholder. You manage the most venues. My son, who is 4 years old, finds your facility rather boring, and you just put large pieces of sponge on the ground and that's it. So don't talk about it. Do something. Do not be overprotective. You're not protecting the children. You're protecting yourselves because you don't want to be prosecuted if someone should get hurt. Can you put aside that kind of mentality and look at your venues from the angle of a parent and a child? Thank you. We agree with you, Mr. Hui. Our facilities must advance with the times. They must be interesting. If we only look at safety, the children will shun them. And so the facilities are not put to the use they are intended for. That is why we have this pilot program to try out an innovative approach. At Tuen Mun Park, we are going to have a new facility and a new management mode. One of the themes is for children to climb up and down, so it's more stimulating, it's more exciting. The children will be able to try something new, and even society and parents will try out that new approach. And we'd like to know whether indeed more children will approach the facility and we'll find out whether it is less safe. As the director said, if it is a success, we can extend it to other parks and playgrounds. So do you have a slide that is 4 or 5 story high in your trial program? Well, we can use different ways to enhance interest. Let me now turn to pet gardens. I don't like that name either. I like to say again, I look at it from the angle of a parent. In many families, we have children and cats and dogs, but it is never possible for us to take the entire family and our pets together to one place for fun. So even if you talk about inclusiveness between animals and humans, I hope you will not segregate the two. Well, I am happy that you can allow children to play balance spikes in one park every district. What about getting one pet garden for every district? Just identify one park and allow pets to be brought into that park, one for each district. Thank you. In a pet garden, well, your children can go into a pet garden. In other words, the entire family can go into a pet garden. But then children do not have any facilities to play on. Well, however, whether it is acceptable to society as a whole, we will consider it, and we'll try to see whether non-pet keeping families are happy to use a park together with pet keeping families. Leung Chi-Chang. Well, I beg to differ from Mr. Ted Hui. I haven't been to all your parks in the 18 districts. I usually go to those in Yuen Long and Tuen Mun. From your paper, I can see that you are very diversified. As a parent, well, I don't only go to one park. I will take my children to different parks to use the facilities. If you can include different characteristics for every district, then the public will already be able to enjoy themselves at your parks and open spaces. I can see the LCSD has done a lot, but maybe you haven't done enough publicity, because I may not know where I can find something with special features. Perhaps the LCSD can disseminate your messages more, so parents will know how to choose, and so they can take their children there on weekends. I'm interested in the community built playgrounds in Para 6. You are going to conduct a pilot. You will get parents and children to make use of simple tools in order to build their own playgrounds. Well, what do you mean by that? How will that be done? In my district, which is Tinshui, the LCSD is already working on this with other people and think it is good reference. One, the art corridor. The cooperation is very successful. We got private sponsorship, and then we got artists from different parts of the world to make sculptures for the appreciation of the public. Schools were involved. I think that kind of participation is important. It lets us understand arts. As people are keeping coins in a particular park together, so they have this sense of protecting the park. Your staff were very responsive. We chose the plants and then they were put in the park. This kind of operation is quite welcome. Can you extend it to other districts? So people will know that the park near them belongs to them, and they will help to protect the park. Thank you. I'll defer to the director in a moment. About the community built playgrounds, this is a very important task. This was launched in September last year. And then in May, we kicked off in Lai Chi Kok, and in September in the Tai Po Waterfront Park. The main feature is that this is led by children, not by parents or by the bureau or department, but children. Secondly, there is cooperation amongst children. An entire group of children who may not know each other will cooperate. And number 3, recycling and reusing waste. We don't use expensive toys, but we use waste, like waste car tires, waste wood blocks, or even leaves. So young children can use non-expensive waste materials to build their own toys, because this is also the world trend. We are looking at waste reduction. Over 10,000 children have taken part, and the response is extremely good. We have plans to build 2, one next year on Hong Kong Island, and then in the New Territories again in 2020. Well, we thought the director could respond, but then we have no time. Sorry. No, not him. Thank you, Chair. Let me see if I can ask 3 questions. We read a story online recently. Samay took his son to a park to play soccer, and a security guard stopped him right away. I think this speaks for many of our parks. Your rules at your parks are really too stringent. In the Southern District, there was a new park built by the MTRCL, and it was turned over to you for management. The rules were really frightening. There was a whole set of rules. Let's say Kai Tak Cruise Terminal. There is a park nearby. you put in so many bans. You're banning 20 things in that park. Banning mushroom picking, no kite flying, no ball games, no dogs allowed, no skateboards, no cycling, no selling of articles, 20 of them.
So why don't you just ban entry once and for all? Because you cannot do anything at all inside. So I think the LCSD regulations are too stringent. If you don't even allow children to play football inside, how can you allow them to enjoy the park itself? For safety reasons or for minimizing a hassle, sometimes the whole park is left with greenery. There aren't many facilities for use. So would the FCSD or the administration consider for areas with a really low usage, you can build some recreational facilities so that the public can really use the park? And earlier I moved a motion, and Chairman, you should know that across the territory there should be planning standard guidelines and supply ratio so that we know whether the current situation is in line with the planning standards. So can you provide this information so that we know the situation in different districts? Secretary, for sports facilities, we entirely agree with Mr. Au Lok Him that when it comes to public open space and parks, if possible, we'll try to include sports facilities. In fact, recently, in many of our parks, we have installed recreational and sports facilities, especially when the population is rapidly aging. We have installed more fitness equipment suitable for elderly people. As for the 18 districts, I think that there is great transparency on our website. You can just look it up to see what facilities are provided by district or by type. But if Mr. Au would like to have more information, I can liaise with him after the meeting to see how we can provide more information to him. As for public open space and parks regulations, is there room for improvement? I'll defer to Director to take your question. Parks are used by all walks of life. They may have different needs and expectations. On the whole, the LCSD is happy to, on a regular basis, consider different ways to make the public open space and parks more open to everyone. For example, in the paper, we will try to set aside an area for use the use of balance bikes in all 18 districts. We'll make sustainable efforts to make sure that we continue to meet the public's needs. Mr. Au Lok Him just now mentioned that he, in fact, has prepared a motion seconded by Mr. Andrew Wen. So, Mr. Au Lok Him, do you think that the administration has answered your question? I think that the standards may not be tallying with the Hong Kong PSG, and that's the crux of my question. And I am also concerned whether we have a quorum for this motion. Yes, and I think if, in essence, the administration's reply can already satisfy you, you may not need to move this motion. That is a list of existing facilities versus the Hong Kong PSG. Well, Chairman, perhaps I can liaise with Mr. Au after the meeting directly to see what information he needs. He's asking for information to be made public. Well, that depends on what information Mr. Au needs. Maybe it's not in the public domain at the moment, but perhaps if Mr. Au requests such information, we can make certain arrangements. Well, I need to discuss with Mr. Andrew Wen as well. Next, Ms. Tanya Chen. Thank you, Chairman. I'll try to speak within the time limit. Well, after reading the paper, I see that one part is left out. This is about public open space, but I don't know whether Chairman or other members noticed that we do have some form of bird cage sitting out areas. I'm talking about a very small open space between two buildings, and in Wan Chai we have two. One is very close, it's in Queens Road East, but the point is it is a walled area. It is close to a bus stop. Sometimes you can take a seat inside whilst waiting for a bus, and then the pavement is really narrow. So the area serves as a rest stop for elderly people. But because there are walls around the space, it is of a very poor design. I want to know how many such public open spaces you have in Hong Kong across, and what is your policy on using this space? Would you consider making the best use of these sites? Because I checked some of them. It may be quite dim, but at least you can improve the seating arrangement. The other point is management. Just now, Mr. Aulochim gave you some examples, and I'd like to know your new thinking. Inclusive playground, for example, or to make the facilities more challenging for children. But apart from that, overall speaking, will there be an innovative management model? And I understand from the director just now that there may be different needs from different groups of users. And the space may be used by elderly as well as children. And then if we have this concept, gradually we may be more inclusive. So in terms of management, is there any flexibility so that you allow ball games in the park without causing a nuisance to other users? Perhaps elderly people may like the place to be quiet, but on weekends, is it possible to have some flexibility? Because after all, on weekends, the parks may get more crowded, and it's better to bring children to parks than to playgroups. I fully agree with Ms. Tanya Chan on idle sites and sitting out areas and the management issues. Let me respond to her. For the Queens Road East sitting out area, there are two, one in Taiwan Street West, and it's quite a dilapidated area with vertical climbing plants, etc. And it's walled, and I understand that it is quite popular. When you want to wait for someone or wait for a bus, it's really a good place for you to take a rest and have a seat. So we'll see whether we have very small sites in Hong Kong which can be converted into similar sitting out areas. And we welcome suggestions. If you can identify such idle sites across the territory, please do tell us and definitely follow up on them. On the point of management, we try to give as much flexibility as possible when it comes to children's playground. Well, if you're going to put forward legislative amendments, please do so. Ms. Eunice Yong, I have a number of questions. First, according to recent news report, young people would prefer exercising outdoors instead of staying indoors. But the leisure and recreational facilities at the moment are mostly tailored for elderly users and children. Now, in 18 districts, we have public open space for use by public in general. So I want to know whether more recreational facilities would be provided for young people instead of just focusing on elderly and children users, because these young people are sports enthusiasts. They may want a place to gather and enjoy fresh air. The other point is about the opening hours. Recently, I visited the new park in Hin King. There is an area for children to play in, which should be commissioned soon. But according to residents, elderly residents would like to do morning exercise there, and they have different groups at different times in the morning, doing different kinds of exercises, and they are concerned about the opening hours. And they're asking whether you can open the area earlier, including the washroom facilities. For New Territories East, there is quite a serious problem with mosquitoes and midges, and I want to know whether the LCSD will enhance the environmental hygiene management, because the contractors also had some views on the matter. I hope that you'll follow up on this issue, because according to what I know, many elderly users suffer from mosquito bites. Now, point number 4 about the culture of music. I understand that the LCSD venues are open for hire for artistic and cultural performances. But I don't think the hiring method is transparent enough. At the moment, it's done on the internet. You can hire indoor venues, whereas for outdoor venues, you need to ring the department to ask for suitable venues according to our group size, and ask whether there will be any impact on the neighborhood. So can you make it more transparent so that more groups can use public open space outside to give performances? Because there is really a shortage of supply, and one would need to book 8 or 10 months in advance. Another point. A member previously asked a question about Area 66 or 68 in Cheung Kwan O, about the development of public open spaces in the next 5 or 10 years. I understand that they will be developed, but at the moment they are just idle sites. So I want to know how the sites will be managed. I understand that they will be developed, but at the moment it's still in the hands of the Lands Department. So the two departments are passing the buck to each other, whereas environmental hygiene is not under anyone's purview. Next, Ms. Dari Lee. But before she begins, I want to tell members that Mr. Au Lok Hin has just moved a motion. It's been circulated to members. Ms. Dari Lee. Our parks is the lungs of the city. In different districts, we do not have a lot of parks. I hope that users will be able to enjoy more such facilities. The public is keen about the jogging, and I see that jogging trails would be good for the public. There should be more. Second point, in the morning, we have a lot of park users. Sometimes they would, they would like to have lockers. We have lockers for in some of the parks. I hope that there will be more. Third point about pet gardens. I don't know whether your team designing pet gardens is also pet owners. The biggest pet garden, the most popular one, is Penfold Park, because it welcomes pet owners as well as dogs. But on the whole, for other pet gardens, you place too much focus on management and you're not meeting the target. Can you tell us, after the meeting, in your photo, where is this lawn? Because I went to Cheung Kwan O Pet Garden. Basically, according to your design, dogs have no access to the lawn area, and it is not suitable. And if you are a dog owner, you would know that dogs really love to run on lawns. For Cheung Kwan O, next to it, you have a large lawn, and I thought that it is part of the pet garden, but in fact it is not. And if you have no management problem at Penfold Park, there should be more lawns for dogs to run about.
Moreover, I know that our parks in Hong Kong are small. If you call the Cheung Kwan O Park the largest pet garden, then, well, actually there is a lawn next by. Please do not focus on management when you design pet gardens. Ask dog keepers and users, please be user-based when you design pet gardens. Number 3. I observe that the pets don't exactly like the facilities you place there. In fact, pets or animals just want a big space to run about, and they can have fun themselves. You actually don't need to place a lot of pet facilities in the pet gardens. Please review the design of pet gardens so you can serve the users better, and including the pet keepers and the pets. I believe there will be more and more pet keepers in Hong Kong, and your pet gardens will be more popular. Thank you. Thank you for the question. I agree. We know that our parks and playgrounds must move ahead with the times and meet the needs of the public. We are aware that the number of pet-keeping families is increasing, and they are very concerned about the provision of pet gardens. Therefore, when we work on parks and playgrounds nowadays, we are providing pet gardens and pet access. Design-wise, we will do our best. Well, please do a survey with the users. Well, I am a user myself. Therefore, I do understand. I agree that animals need a big lawn to run on, but none of your pet gardens provide a big lawn. In fact, time is up for this meeting, but we have to process a motion. I think members who would like to ask questions have all asked their questions. We need to process a motion by Mr. Oh Nok Hin, seconded by Mr. Andrew Wen, but we do not have a quorum. Let us ring the bell to summon members to come back. We'll process the motion and then we'll close the meeting.
好咁我哋而家咧就
Okay, we will now process Mr. Aunokhin's proposed motion, which is seconded by Mr. Andrew Wen. You have the wording in front of you. Those in favor? Well, first of all, we need to decide whether we will process it. Those who agree to process the motion? Hands up. Well, actually, if there is no objection, we'll process the motion. Those who are in favor of the motion.
I
thought nobody objected.
先第一個就處
First, do we agree that we process the motion? Those who agree? 4. Those who object? 4.
咁即係點啊？係四位贊成。
4 for, 4 against.
仲有冇人棄權？
Any abstentions? No abstention.
呢個議案係不獲贊成。
We do not agree to process the motion. Next item, AOB. There is nothing under AOB. The meeting is ended here. Thank you.